Hey y'all, it's Stephen Van Kampen-Lewis, and today I want to show you that spring has sprung in my grow tents. Temperatures outside are kind of going up and down. It's here in the middle of February. It's actually Valentine's Day right now, and next week here in Texas we're going to get probably our worst Arctic blast, which is kind of late in the year for us. But the plants that are inside the tent, I'm looking at my tent right now. They don't really know that it's still winter outside, and they're doing all these sort of springtime things. So today, what I want to show you is a couple of things. I think the most important thing that I want to show you is the new flower spikes on the Cattleya nobilior and what that looks like. And so to recap, in case you're not familiar with nobilior and walkeriana spikes, they actually put out a whole new growth. Rather than a more traditional Cattleya, when you think of it, where it blooms at the top of the pseudobulb, these actually put out a full new growth, and then they bloom from the new growth. Then that growth spike kind of dies back for the most part, and then they'll put out a new bulb, which is a more normal looking growth. So I want to show you what this spike growth looks like, and it does look different than their typical growth, but it's subtle. It's not necessarily something that you just instantly see, if you haven't grown them before and you're like, oh, well, that's a spike. There are differences, but they take kind of a trained eye. So I want to show you that. I also have Cattleya amethystoglossa. I'm looking over there to my other tent. The flowers are just opening up, but I'll give you a sneak preview. And then a bunch of my Catasetums are waking up, and I was able to actually repot some last weekend. But for now, I really want to focus on the nobiliors. So let's get the camera turned around and look at what these spikes look like and how they're a little different than a typical growth. All right, so you can see both my tents there. The front covers are peeled back, and I have my imported nobiliors on the bottom level there. Let me show you what I mean by that. That's the bottom level. This level that's closest to me here has all the nobiliors that are actually, they are American, or at least Americanized, and they're on an American schedule, I guess I should say. They know it's spring when it's actually spring, and unlike the ones that are behind them, that are, their seasons are reversed because they were imported a couple months ago. But these ones are the ones with lots of bloom spikes. And so that's what I want to show you today, is what some of these bloom spikes look like and compare them to the traditional growth. So first of all, I'll say that a bloom spike that you'll see here, and you can kind of see one right there. I think that one has another one somewhere. Oh, it does, on the backside. But really, they're more pointy than a typical growth. So it's interesting for nobiliors, their bloom spikes are incredibly pointy compared to their typical growth. And I'll show you a photo here of one that I took a couple years ago. And this is a more advanced growth, so bloom spike, I should say. And so you can really see how incredibly pointed they are, whereas a typical growth has a much more rounded point to it. So that's the first thing that you look for. And that's true for walkerianas as well. And so I pointed out this spike here, but then I've also got a couple over here. Let me scooch this back a little more and zoom in. And you can see two, let's see, there we go. So you can really see, you can easily see that one in the background. This one here, super pointed. But there's also one under here. You see that there. And so that's my polyploid cerulean, and it has two spikes right there. But then, let me zoom out so I don't make anybody seasick. There's another one down there. I think there's a few more that I could poke around and find, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. But this one here is very pointed as well. This is another Cattleya. Come on, focus. There we go. And so what's going to happen is you can see there's this kind of a slit right here, and that's going to split open, and that's where the buds will come out. So this particular growth will probably triple in size before that actually happens. And then as it, again, I'll show that photo. I'll show you that photo again right now of the spike coming out. And you can see that's the blooms coming out of that sort of slit there. And that's what it ends up looking like. So, you know, the timing is important. These bloom in the spring. So if you have new growths coming up in the spring on a mature plant, there's a good chance that it will be a bloom spike. Have another one right here, kind of in the shadow there. This is also a really good one here. So that's a nice big thick one, very pointy. I haven't seen this one bloom before, so this is another Cattleya. I think I haven't seen this one bloom before. I have to get my bearings back on which plant is which, since I got my nobiliors back from my buddy Chris, because some I've seen bloom and some I haven't. And so there's like a really interesting one here. Let's see if I can zoom in. You know, see behind the zip tie is this growth here, and then a root nubbin coming out the other side. This is a small plant. So, you know, this is a 2 or 3 inch pot. I don't expect that one to be blooming. It's just too small of a plant. But of course, this one is certainly large enough. This one is large enough. And so that should give you an indication of how big these plants need to be before they bloom. And this is actually a spent bloom spike here. So they kind of look like small bulbs that don't ever fully make it. And so the spike will come out the top here, and then the blooms will fall off, and then this part of the spike falls off as well. This one's actually a rubra. I am hoping to see, yes, I do see a spike. So I know for a fact I have not seen this one bloom in real life. Only photos from my buddy Chris. And so that should be a really cool one to see. I'm excited for y'all to see it as well. And then so that means I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nobiliors that are putting out bloom spikes right now. So in about a month from now, I should have a really great show for all of you. So you can see this one back here has some buds coming out right there. That's actually the Flammea. I looked at the tag. That's the Flammea. That'll be a first bloom. This red one that I showed you is granulosa. So that's going to be a red granulosa, which will be incredibly cool. This is another one that if I could pull it out, I could show you that this sheath is full of buds, totally swollen. And this is an aurea, or at least it has aurea in the background. So this one will hopefully be yellow. I don't think I saw this one bloom last year, but if I did, it should have been yellow. So that's 2 plants, 2 amethystoglossas right there that have buds forming on plants that I don't believe I've seen their flowers. So that should be really cool. Next to bloom is typically my Ludemanianas. So this one is maturing a new growth, and this one is still immature. And I've got some other mature growth, so those will be next, probably in 2 months from now. But then over here, this is my favorite amethystoglossa that is just opening up. I chopped it last year and sold the overwhelming majority of the pot. I sold a piece that would have filled out those pots, and then just kept this one back division. It put out a new growth here and then is blooming already. So that tells me that I did a good job growing it this year. You can see the roots have really filled in the pot from this single growth. So it's a happy plant. It's blooming. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flowers already coming out on the first growth since I divided it. And that growth put out 3 leaves. So all's well with that plant. You know, whenever you chop up a bifoliate, there's this sort of dread in the back of your mind that you didn't do it right and things could go poorly, but that didn't happen this time. So I guess another one that's spiking here is my Cattleya glauca. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 spikes coming out of that one. And those are little baby nobiliors that are growing in there. I've got them all jammed together. Not really excited about doing that, but sometimes you have to do that to get everything into the tents in winter. And then I mentioned that the Catasetums are blooming. Excuse me, not blooming. They're growing, and there's a new growth right there. You can see that Grace Dunn there. This one actually has 3 new growths. That one is the Catasetum lucis over there that I repotted and showed you a video of it a couple weeks ago. So that new growth is going well. If you recall, I snapped off the other new growth, and I'm very sad about that, but it is what it is. So spring has sprung here in the tents, and that's all I wanted to show you today. So hopefully next week I will be able to give you an update on that blooming amethystoglossa. And then these nobiliors will be much, much farther along and should put on a really, really good show here soon, maybe in time for the Austin Orchid Society show, and maybe I can get them entered for judging. That would be really cool. Anyway, have a great weekend.